She left her daughter with a stranger, but what haunted them forever at 3 a.m.? Truth shockng. The night was thick with mystery, draping the small town in shadows. A chilling whisper floated through the air, spinning tales of horror that would grip anyone who dared to listen. Susan had made a choice that would echo in her mind forever, leaving her sweet daughter, Lily, with a stranger just so she could run a quick errand. It seemed innocent enough, until the clock struck 3. That hour was notorious around there, whispered about in hushed tones. Some said it was when the veil between the living and the dead became thin. Others insisted it was the witching hour, where the unexplainable seeped into reality. Streets lay silent, the only sound was the distant howl of the wind rattling window panes. Susan felt that familiar knot of anxiety as she hurried back home, her feet pounding on the pavement like a racing heartbeat. She paused at the end of the driveway, breath hitched in her throat. A shadow loomed in the window. Who was that with her child? Panic surged like a tidal wave, and she rushed forward, her vision narrowing. Inside, time stood still. The room was cluttered with toys, yet a heavy silence loomed. Her heart raced. There was no sound of laughter or play. Only the eerie tick of the clock echoed loudly, making her skin crawl. Suddenly, the lights flickered, casting strange, dancing shadows across the walls. The world seemed to hold its breath. "Lily?" Susan called, her voice shaky. The walls almost seemed to shiver in response. And then, right there in the darkness, something shifted. A cold draft swept through, and her gut twisted. The stranger's face appeared, a vacant smile stretched across his lips, eyes dark and hollow. Something wasn't right. Was he truly there to help? Or was he lying in wait for something more sinister? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. A loud thud echoed like a bomb in the quiet, snapping her focus back. Lily appeared, tears streaking her little face, her voice quivering. "Mommy. I feel scared." Chills spiked down Susan's spine. She rushed to her daughter, arms pulling her close. "What happened?" she whispered urgently, glancing back at the stranger, whose smile never wavered. But there was something in the way he moved, like shadows playing tricks on her mind. "What did he say to you?" As she hugged Lily tight, dread coiled in her stomach. This wasn't over. The night was still young, and something was waiting. What had they unleashed at that hour? And was it coming for them? The silence thickened around them, heavy and suffocating. Susan's heart hammered in her chest, a frantic beat amidst a storm of confusion and dread. Lily's tiny body shook against her, and she could feel her daughter's warm breath hitching as if holding back a sob. The stranger's eyes darted to Lily, and for a moment, Susan felt something dark flicker in their depths. "She was just scared of the thunder," he said, voice smooth, yet cold like steel. "I was just keeping her company." "Company?" Susan's voice was sharp, bearing the weight of her fear. She squeezed Lily tight, feeling the tension in her daughter's little body. "You've had her alone for too long. Where were you when that strange noise happened?" "Just in the hall," he said with an unsettling calm, his smile never fading. "Curiosity got the best of me." Susan felt a chill prick at her skin as she recalled the thud that had cracked the silence. Curiosity? Or was it something more sinister? Images whirled in her mind. She remembered whispers about this man. Unfounded rumors wrapped up in the fabric of her small town. A drifter, they said. A man who had no place to call home. But tonight, he was in her home, with her daughter. "Let us go," she finally managed, her voice steadying, though her insides quaked. She turned, guiding Lily toward the door, when the stranger laughed, a harsh, mirthless sound that echoed off the walls. "Are you really going to walk out just like that?" he taunted, his tone shifting. The light flickered again, and Susan felt a knot twist in her stomach. "The night is just beginning. Don't you want to know what happens at 3? Without thinking, she bolted out the door with Lily in her arms, the cool night air slicing through her panicked thoughts. She didn't look back, but the sound of laughter followed her, lingering like a ghost. The street lay empty, a vast silence stretching out around them. Every shadow felt alive, ready to swallow them whole. She ran toward her neighbor's house, knowing the Johnsons would be awake. They had a teenage daughter, always roaming around at odd hours. A beacon of normalcy in the madness. As they reached the porch, however, dread settled into the pit of her stomach. The porch light flickered, its glow dim and waning. Susan knocked frantically, heart racing, but no one answered. "Mommy, I want to go back," Lily whimpered, burying her face against her shoulder. Susan felt like she was living a nightmare, the fear radiating from her daughter seeping into her bones. "No, honey. We can't go back. Not yet." She took a deep breath, her mind racing. If the stranger followed them, they wouldn't be safe anywhere. The town was asleep, unaware of the horrors unraveling under its facade. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air, vibrating through the ground beneath her feet. A faint light flickered behind her, illuminating the corners of the dark street. She turned to look, dread pooling in her chest. In the distance, the stranger lingered at her front yard, his smile etched in darkness. "What do you think you'll find out there?" he called out, voice echoing like a dark melody in the night. The question hung in the air, chilling and taunting. Susan felt the weight of it wrap around her like chains, tightening with each passing moment. Desperation clawed at her, and she turned back to the door, banging on it with all her might. "Please. Somebody help us." But the silence only stretched, pulling the noose of fear tighter, and all she could hear was her own rapid breathing and the eerie echo of their tormentor's laughter. What was it that had awakened at 3? Was it just the stranger, or was there something more lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? The night wasn't finished with them yet, and neither was the old clock ticking away in the other room. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of rain and something more acrid and unseen danger. Susan's heart raced as she gripped Lily tight, trying to shield her from the encroaching darkness. They had to keep moving, away from the laughter that danced on the air like a macabre lullaby. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily's voice trembled, her small body shivering against the chill that had settled in the night. Behind them, the flickering light glinted off the stranger's figure, his shadow stretching long on the pavement. Susan didn't dare turn around. "Just a little further," she urged, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her throat. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the very ground conspired against them. She had to get them to safety, had to find help. Rounding the corner of Maple Street, she nearly stumbled over an overturned trash can, scattering contents across the sidewalk. The noise startled her, and she froze, momentarily paralyzed by the thought of being caught again. But then she heard a low, rumbling growl from the distance, keeping pace with their fear. Her breath caught. What was that? "Keep close, sweetie," she whispered urgently, urging Lily toward the neighboring street. The houses here were farther apart, their windows dark, casting an eerie stillness over everything. Not a soul in sight, if only the Johnsons had heard her desperate calls. As minutes ticked by, an oppressive silence settled over them. That strange hum returned, vibrating through the air, building with an intensity that made the hairs on Susan's arms stand on end. "I don't want to do this anymore, Mommy. I want to go home," Lily cried, her voice shattering the stillness. "We'll be home soon, I promise," Susan replied, though even she could feel the lie on her tongue. Her instincts screamed that there was nothing normal about what was happening, nothing safe. She had to think. Then, suddenly, a scream shattered the night. A raw, instinctive sound that froze Susan's blood. It echoed off the walls of the surrounding houses, panicked, pleading. The sound of terror. "Did you hear that?" Lily whispered, her eyes wide, reflecting the fear that mirrored her own. "Yes," Susan replied, her pulse racing. "We need to go." But the scream faded into the void, leaving an unsettling calm in its wake. Susan moved forward, heart pounding, searching for the dim glow of lights in distant windows. Then, she noticed it. A silhouette in the shadows, standing still, unmoving like a hungry predator watching its prey. "Mommy! Look!" Lily's voice quivered, pointing down the street. The faint outline of a woman in a nightgown flickered into view, glancing towards them. Her mouth moved, but no words reached them. Then, she turned abruptly, disappearing behind a hedge, her movements sudden and disjointed, like a marionette with tangled strings. The ground began to shake slightly beneath Susan's feet, pulsating with each beat of her racing heart. The humming intensified again, vibrating through her bones, intertwining with the low growl now echoing on all sides. It sent a shiver of dread crawling down her spine. "Mommy, I want to go home." Lily cried again, her small hands gripping Susan's shirt as they stumbled forward. "Just hold on, honey." She picked up her pace, desperation flooding her voice. They were fumbling blindly through the gloom now, the threat lurking around every corner. She had never felt so helpless, so painfully aware that something was hunting them. A loud thud resonated behind them, almost too close for comfort. Susan turned her head involuntarily, catching a glimpse of the shadowy figure moving faster now, closing the distance between them. It was no longer just the stranger's laughter taunting them, there was something darker, filled with an intent that chilled her to the core. A flash of light, a street lamp flickered back to life, illuminating a pathway just ahead. Susan gathered her strength and propelled herself toward it, forcing her limbs to obey, but the ominous growl followed close behind. "Run!" she shouted suddenly, as adrenaline surged through her body. With fear gripping her heart, she dashed toward the light, but the nagging thought clawed at her: what if they weren't just running away? What if whatever was hunting them was drawing nearer with every step they took? The looming question thrummed through her mind, just as the clock in her heart ticked ever closer to 3. What awaited them when that moment arrived? The street lamp's light carved a small oasis in the surrounding darkness, its warm glow offering a fragile sense of safety, but Susan knew it was just an illusion. Panic coursed through her veins as they sprinted, her mind racing with scenarios, each one darker than the last. "Mommy, I can't run anymore." Lily gasped, her legs wobbling beneath her. "Just a little further, baby." "I promise we'll be fine," Susan replied, heart heavy with dread. She could feel the growl lurking behind them, relentless and hungry. With a jolt, they reached a small park, the only place left untouched by the shadows. The moonlight spilled across the grass, revealing a playground that now seemed like a ghost of happier times. Swings swayed gently in the breeze, creaking softly as if echoing their fear. "Over there." Susan pointed toward the park's gazebo. The walls were faded but offered a semblance of shelter. She pushed Lily ahead, the weight of her child's fear driving her forward. Lily stumbled, and Susan quickly scooped her up, hugging her tight. "We need to hide," she whispered, her eyes darting around. The growling persisted, now almost a wheeze, filling the night with an unsettling rhythm. As they huddled inside the gazebo, the air felt heavy and electric. Susan peered out, breath catching in her throat. A figure emerged from the darkness, moving with a grotesque smoothness that sent chills racing down her spine. It wasn't he the stranger anymore, it was something worse, a thing that seemed to absorb the light around it, leaving only dread in its wake. "Stay quiet," she urged, pressing Lily's head against her chest. Her heart drummed in her ears, drowning out everything else. They held their breath, each second stretching painfully, the quiet settling thick as fog. The figure prowled closer, pausing at the edge of the park, sniffing the air. Susan's grip tightened on Lily. The creature was close enough now that she could see its features twisted, with hollow eyes that glinted like polished stone. It turned its head, almost as if it could feel their fear pulsating in the air. All at once, the figure let out a scream, a piercing sound that echoed across the park, rich with malice. Susan clamped her hand over Lily's mouth, eyes wide with terror. Please, she thought, willing the dark entity to lose interest, to just let them be. But as if mocking her plea, it began to move again, prowling toward the gazebo, the shadows bending and shifting around it like it was drawing strength from the night. Then, a sudden flicker of light broke through the trees. A car. Its headlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the park. Surely someone had seen them. "Mommy, help!" Lily cried, breaking the silence. The sound hung in the air, a beacon of desperation and hope. "No!" Susan hissed, guilt washing through her like icy water. There was no safety to be found, no guarantees. The growling intensified as the figure vanished into the shadows, its focus now solely on the beam of light roaring into the park. The car slowed, light scanning the area like a searchlight. She could see two figures inside, straining to get a look at what was happening. "Mommy, they can help us," Lily whimpered, but before Susan could muster a response, the creature re-emerged with a speed that thrummed like lightning. "Run!" Susan yelled, the command ripping from her throat. They dashed from their hiding place, the headlights illuminating their flight. The car's door swung open, but the figures inside were yelling a warning, perhaps. "Please! Help!" Susan cried, desperate as she ran toward the light, but the beast was faster, its shadow enveloping her thoughts, closing around her. They hadn't gotten far when the growl morphed into an unnatural scream, a sound mingled with the car's horn blaring. And as the noise shattered the night, leaving only confusion in its wake, they suddenly understood, they weren't just running blind. Something awaited them at 3, but now, what had happened to the light? "Mommy, where are we going?" Lily asked, breathless, and with every heartbeat, a new terror gripped Susan. How far? Could she run before the darkness reclaimed them both? They sprinted toward the car, but Susan's heart sank as she realized the figures inside were not rushing to help. Instead, they were shouting in panic, eyes wild with fear, eyes that had sensed the dark presence long before she had. "No! No!" Susan screamed, urging Lily to keep moving, her little legs struggling to keep pace. The growl had transitioned into a savage howl, piercing through the night like a warning shot. Just ahead, the light from the car flickered, casting shadows that danced wildly around them. They were almost there, but the heat of terror clung to her like a shroud. The figures from the car, the man and woman, were now stumbling out, their faces taut with horror. "Get back! Get back!" The man shouted, waving his arms frantically. "It's coming! It's here!" Susan skidded to a halt, her breath hitching as dread enveloped her. She could only think of Lily. "Honey, we have to stay close." Dropping to her knees, she pulled Lily into a tight embrace. A flash of headlights shifted behind them, amplifying the urgency of the moment, but they were too exposed where they stood. Then the creature emerged from the shadows, its outline shuddering as if reality itself twisted around it. It paused, inhaling deeply, its hollow eyes locking onto Susan and Lily with predatory intent. "Get in the car!" the woman yelled, fear clawing at her voice. "Now!" The warning compelled Susan to act. She grabbed Lily's hand, racing toward the open door of the vehicle. The man was shouting something, but Susan could hardly hear over the terrifying growl that resonated from the creature, filling the air with primal dread. But just as they reached the car, a shaking hand grabbed her shoulder, spinning her around violently. It was the woman, panting like she had run a marathon. "You can't let it in," she cried. "Lock the doors." In that moment, Susan felt the ground beneath her twist. "What do you mean?" "We have to get away. I saw it. I saw what it does." The woman's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she gestured wildly toward the shadows. "It takes you. You can't let it." Before she could finish, the beast lunged. Time seemed to freeze as the whip of shadows enveloped them. The night fractured with sound, a chilling scream melded with the car's desperate alarms. "Go!" Susan screamed as she pushed Lily into the back seat, fumbling for the door lock. Her fingers shook, trembling as she heard the creature's rasping breath grow louder, closer. The flimsy glass windows offered nothing but a false promise of safety. Lily was crying, pure terror spilling from her as she clutched the car seat. "Mommy, I'm scared." "Me too, baby. Hold on." Susan slammed the door just as the creature's claw scraped against the metal, sparks flying. The woman fell back, the look in her eyes mirroring the horror Susan felt. The man twisted to the driver's seat. "It'll break the windows," he yelled, lunging forward. Susan locked her gaze on the trembling light of the street lamp beyond, longing for its warmth to wrap around her like a blanket. Then came the sound, a crack of glass and a horrible snarl that cut through the air. With a surge of adrenaline, the man turned the ignition. The car roared to life, tires squealing as he slammed on the gas. Susan felt the jolt push her back, the wind whipping through her hair, the creature's screech fading into the distance. But as they barreled into the night, panic coursed through Susan. What did she mean? She whispered, almost to herself, struggling to catch her breath. Then she remembered the look in the woman's eyes, a silent plea wrapped in the curling shadows that had chased them. "Mommy, where is it? Is it gone?" Lily's small voice trembled. That it was only after they'd cleared the park, the spark of darkness retreating behind them, that Susan let out a slow, shuddering breath. They were safe for the moment, but as uncertainty settled in, one horrifying question lingered: was it truly gone or just waiting to return? With dread settling heavily in her chest, she knew this night was far from over. As they drove on, darkness loomed ahead, reminding them that the true terror had yet to reveal itself. What had they awakened on that restless night? The car's headlights pierced the dark stretch of road, illuminating twisted trees that loomed on either side like ancient sentries. Though they had escaped the clutches of the creature, the feeling of safety slipped further away with every passing moment. What did she mean? Susan asked again, her voice a mere whisper, tight with anxiety. She turned to the man in the driver's seat. His knuckles were white as he gripped the steering wheel, beads of sweat tracing down his forehead. "They're not safe out there, you know," he muttered, jaw clenched. "We need to take the highway." Lily whimpered, burying her face in Susan's side. "I want to go home." Her small body trembled against Susan, who stroked her hair, wishing she could wash away the terror swirling around them. "Home is safe, sweetheart. We'll be there soon." But deep down, even Susan knew this was a lie. With their escape came a chilling silence that felt heavier than before, as if the night itself were holding its breath. The man's gaze flickered in the rearview mirror, scanning the darkness behind them. "We need to get far away from that park. I've heard rumors, dark things live there. Things that shouldn't exist." "What things?" Susan demanded, her heart pounding as she leaned closer. "The woods, they're not just trees and dirt. People have gone missing. Those who wander too close never come back." He spoke quietly, the tremor in his voice mirroring her own rising fear. Lily squeezed her hand tightly. "Mommy, I don't want to talk about it." But the conversation hung in the air, palpable and suffocating. It was a nightmare cocooned in reality. "Listen to me," Susan urged the man, anxiously brushing strands of hair from her face. "If we're being chased, we need to know how to fight back." What did that woman see? He hesitated, his eyes darting again to the shadows pooling behind them. "I don't know how it works. But I know it's clever. It toys with you. It knows what you fear." Just then, the headlights flickered, casting erratic shadows across the road. The car jolted as something slammed against the trunk, sending a cold blade of fear slicing through Susan's gut. "What was that?" she cried, her pulse racing. "It's playing with us," he said, a grimace tightening his features. "Just drive. Don't look back." The road stretched endlessly ahead, but the darkness thickened, swallowing them as if the world was collapsing around them. Susan felt the heat of panic swelling within her. "Are we going to be okay?" she whispered, her eyes fixed on her daughter, who trembled beside her. "We have to keep moving," the man replied, sounding less sure, his voice cracking. Suddenly, Lily pointed wildly out of the window. "There! Did you see that?" Susan's heart skipped a beat. She looked, her breath hitching again. A shadow dashed between the trees, impossibly fast, impossibly dark. It was there, lurking, just beyond the edge of the light. "Faster!" Lily's scream sliced through the air, raw and desperate. The man slammed on the gas, tires screeching as they hurtled down the road. But within moments, another thud echoed from behind them. The creature's howls sliced through the night like knives, fueling the fear that wrapped around them. As they raced ahead, Susan felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. They had to find safety, and fast. The highway loomed in the distance, its promise of civilization flickering like a distant star, but when she glanced back at the darkness, a chill gripped her heart. The figure the beast was gaining fast, its form blending into the shadows, a predator stalking its prey. "We have to get out of here!" she cried out, desperately scanning for an escape, for any way to break free from this nightmare. The headlights illuminated a sign, "Exit 12, last chance." "Please, please!" she shouted. "Take that exit!" But just as the man swerved sharply, a deafening roar erupted behind them. The car shook violently. Susan felt an icy grip of terror. When she turned to look back, her stomach dropped. What had followed them was no longer just a shadow. The night felt alive now, electric with danger. What they faced was not just a creature. It was a nightmare woven into their very existence. As they approached the exit, the distant glimmer of light flickered almost teasingly. Freedom felt absurdly close, yet impossibly far. In the depths of her heart, Susan knew their fight was just beginning, because whatever they had disturbed in the park was going to let them go without a cost. Was their escape merely an illusion, or had they just stepped deeper into the monster's lair? The tires screeched as the man yanked the wheel, taking the exit hard. The headlights flickered in and out for a moment, plunging them into brief darkness before illuminating the narrow road ahead, lined with flickering streetlights that seemed to struggle against the encroaching night. The atmosphere inside the car crackled with tension. Susan gripped the armrest, the metal biting into her palm. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice trembling but resolute. "Get to the bridge," the man replied, urgency coloring his tone. "We can cross it and head to town." Lily's whimper filled the silence. "I'm scared, Mommy," her voice quivered like a fragile thread. "Why is it chasing us?" Susan's heart ached for her daughter. "I don't know, baby. Just hold on to me." She shifted in her seat, locking eyes with the man. "Do you think it's gone?" As if in response, the woods erupted in a series of haunting howls from behind. The noise sliced through the cool night air like a scream trapped in the throats of the hunted. The man grimaced, pushing down harder on the gas, the engine roaring in protest as they barreled down the new path, hearts pounding in unison. "Faster! We can't let it catch us." Susan's voice rose, the primal instinct to survive igniting a fire in her veins. The headlights danced across the trees, revealing grotesque shapes that twisted into nightmare forms. Shadows rushed alongside them as they sped through the bridge's entrance, the entire structure groaning beneath their weight. A chill raced down Susan's spine. "What if it follows us across?" "It has to stop at the water," he said, though a hint of doubt flickered in his eyes. The roar of the creature intensified, and Susan glanced back, her breath hitching in her throat. Through a break in the trees, she caught a glimpse of something, an inky shape hurtling towards them like a living nightmare, leaping as if unbound by the laws of reality. "It's coming, it's coming!" she screamed, her voice peaking in sheer terror. "No! Don't look!" the man shouted, his eyes glued to the road. "Just keep going." The bridge stretched ahead, the dark water bubbling ominously beneath. In that moment, something instinctual took over. Susan leaned forward, taking a deep breath, willing her mind to stay focused. We have to stop it. We can't keep running forever. There has to be a way to fight back. The man hesitated, fear and desperation battling behind his gaze. Fight what? Look at it. We listen. We can't let it win, Susan interrupted, gritting her teeth. If it senses weakness, it will tear us apart. Suddenly, a violent crash echoed behind them, the beast slamming into the bridge with a force that rattled the steel beams. The car jolted violently, and Susan's heart raced. She felt it would rip their lives apart before her very eyes. Get ready. The man shouted. We might have to jump. But before they could react, the creature leaped again, now soaring over the edge of their car. In that instant, time slowed. Susan's heart lurched in her chest as the beast landed with a bone-jarring thud, filling the world with a guttural growl, the sound emanating from some deep, dark place of cruelty. Go. Now. She fought through her fear, her hand gripping the gear shift. The man punched the gas harder, propelling them forward. But the creature landed right in their path, towering, its form an amalgamation of darkness, with piercing eyes that glinted with malicious intelligence. Susan could see it clearly now, and every instinct screamed at her to turn and run. This was no ordinary beast. Mommy! Lily screamed, terror dripping from her small voice. The man swerved to avoid it, but the creature was faster. It darted in front of them, blocking their escape. With a surge of adrenaline, Susan yelled, we can't let it control us. We need to make it back. In reverse. He half shouted, but their window was closing, and they all sensed it. Just as he shifted into reverse, something glimmered on the dashboard, a faint glint at the edge of the lights, catching her eye. Susan's mind raced. What if there was something they could use, but... Before she could comprehend the thought, the beast lunged again, its claws smashing into the car so hard that the windows trembled, fragments of glass falling like rain. Go, go, go. She screamed, fear igniting her voice. The man barely had time to shift when, with a skidding, thunderous roar, the creature's massive form collided with the car again, and then, silence. Had the beast claimed them? Had the night swallowed their screams? Susan's thoughts tumbled in the dark, repelling panic. But as her vision began to fade, she could have sworn she heard a whisper on the wind, sinister and familiar. Finally, just as darkness began to descend, a faint glimmer appeared in the corner of her eye. Their only hope. Or their final end. The struggle against the abyss was far from over. The stillness in the air was suffocating. Susan's heart thundered in her chest, a cacophony filled with chaos and dread. She blinked, struggling against the encroaching darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. Mommy, please. Lily's small voice felt like a fragile lifeline, anchored somewhere in the thick fog of fear. Lily. Susan forced her eyes open wider, shaking the haze of unconsciousness away. Glimmers of the dashboard lights illuminated the wreckage of their world, shattered glass glinted like tiny stars scattered on the ground. The car was tipped slightly on its side, the twisted metal groaning as if in pain. Are you okay? The man's voice broke through her haze, frantic yet tethered to that primal instinct to survive. I think so, she stammered, drawing in a deep breath, her body reacting instinctively against the pain blooming in her side. Get out. He commanded urgently, his eyes darting around, wild and searching. We have to run. Before Susan could fully process the words, he was out and hitting the pavement, stumbling but instinctively on the move. Her heart pounded harder at the thought of Lily. Come on, sweetie. She felt a pang of terror as she turned to her daughter. Lily was still buckled into her seat, tears spilling from terrified eyes, shaking like a leaf. I can't get out. She wailed. Yes, you can. You have to. Panic clawed at Susan's voice. She knew the creature wouldn't hesitate, wouldn't show mercy. The howls of the beast echoed, now closer, a growl that rumbled deep in her bones. Fighting through her own adrenaline high, she turned to her daughter, "Just push, honey. I'll help you." Susan unbuckled her seatbelt and reached for Lily, fingers trembling as she worked on the child's latch. The car shuddered violently, a shrill metal grating sending shockwaves through Susan's spine. "Mommy!" Lily breathed, her plea laced with desperation and dread. "Almost there." Susan gritted out between breaths, finally feeling the click release. She scooped her daughter into her arms, clasping her tightly to her chest. "Run! Now!" Lily's small feet pounded against the pavement as they burst from the car, the cold night air biting into their skin. The bridge loomed ahead, narrow and daunting, a sliver of hope against the chaos swirling behind them. But the darkness around them shifted unnaturally, shadows coiling and slithering as the creature surged into view. It advanced with deadly speed, its menacing form shimmering in the scant light, claws glinting. "Faster!" Susan shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. She could hear the beast's breath, heavy and menacing, forcing her to push her legs harder as they headed towards the bridge's end. "Mommy! What is that?" Lily shrieked, glancing back out of fear and curiosity. "Don't look. Just keep running," Susan urged. They were gaining ground, she could feel the gap widening. But then a terrible roar erupted from behind them, reverberating through the air like distant thunder, freezing time for one horrifying second. The force pushed them forward, the bridge shaking beneath the strain as if it were about to collapse. "Keep going." The man was already running toward them as they neared the edge. And then came the sound, a sickening thud as the creature slammed into the bridge behind them. The wooden beams creaked, a mournful groan that echoed in her ears. Heart racing, Susan pushed herself to reach the end, the shadows of the bridge wrapping around them. "We need to jump," she shouted, adrenaline surging uncontrollably. "Jump?" Lily's voice was trembling, thick with fear. "Jump!" Susan shouted. Just as they reached the end, she grabbed Lily tightly and leaped into the air. Time seemed to slow as they hung suspended for a moment, suspended between terror and freedom. Susan felt the rush of wind whip around them, then she hit the water. The cold enveloped her like a silencing blanket. In the dark depths, she struggled to keep them both afloat, the icy fingers of despair dragging at her. "Mommy!" Lily's tiny voice cried out, the horror reverberating through the water around them. With all her strength, Susan's lungs burned and fought against the weight of the world, but one thought burned hotter than fear: find Lily, protect her, survive. As they surfaced, gasping for air, the roar from the bridge turned into a maniacal laughter, and Susan could almost hear the creature whisper, "You can't escape me." With panic cascading through her mind, she wheeled around, clutching Lily tight. They had to get to the shore, but what horror awaited them on land? The reflection of the creature's eyes shimmered just below the surface, a symbol of dread surfacing among the waves. What did it know that they didn't? And as Susan began to swim, the darkness shifted once more, revealing a path that may lead to safety or the abyss. Which would it be? The chill of the water nipped at Susan's skin, and her muscles screamed against the cold as she fought to swim toward the shoreline. Panic surged inside her like a tidal wave, propelling her forward. Just a little further. She gasped, her lungs burning as desperation fueled each stroke. Lily clung tightly, her small body shivering against Susan's. "I can't hold on, Mommy," she whimpered, eyes wide and filled with terror. "Yes, you can. You're so brave. Just a bit more," Susan encouraged, her voice strained but steady, overlaid with the rhythm of urgent splashes. The eerie stillness of the water felt wrong, as though the very depths were conspiring against them. Shadows writhed beneath the surface, just out of sight. Each ripple whispered of something lurking, waiting. Susan's eyes darted around as they drew closer to the jagged outline of the shore. She could barely see through the darkness, but she mustered every ounce of strength she had. Then a sharp cry tore through the air. The beast's laughter echoed hauntingly from the bridge, a reminder of the terror they had just escaped. And then, a sound not of the creature but out of the silence surrounding them. A voice, soft yet commanding, drifted across the water, sending chills down Susan's spine. "Help is here, just let go." No. It couldn't be. A twisted figure, a silhouette against the moonlit background, emerged at the water's edge, beckoning. "I'll take your daughter where it's safe, stay away from her." Susan's scream pierced through the night, her heart hammering as adrenaline surged anew. The voice was an enigma, as comforting as it was sinister, and she could see the creature lurking in the darkness beyond, its eyes glistening like shards of glass. "Mommy!" Lily cried, her small hands trembling against Susan's shoulders. "I'm scared." "Hold on tight, Lily. Don't let go." Susan cried back, her mind racing. She didn't know who that figure was, and the words dangled in the air like a noose ready to tighten. The shoreline loomed, but the water began to swirl erratically, as if something monstrous moved just beneath. The only safe haven was the pier just ahead, with splintered wood protruding from the water, a rickety promise of salvation. With every ounce of willpower, Susan pushed them both toward safety. The creature at the bridge roared once more, shaking the very ground they hoped to reach. It felt closer, like it was tasting their fear. As they reached the pier, she extended her arms, Lily's feet splashing against the submerged wood. "Climb up. You can do it." But just as Lily scrambled to find her footing, that dark figure spoke again, silken and dripping with malice. "You can't escape your fate, Susan. You left her." "Shut up!" Susan yelled, spinning around, wild rage igniting within her. "I didn't leave her. I'm right here." Suddenly, a blinding light flooded the area, illuminating the figure. Under the harsh glow, the contours of the figure sharpened, revealing a face she knew far too well, twisted into a ghastly smile. "Did you think you could outrun the past?" Susan faltered, heart dropping as fear rippled through her. The familiar visage sent a wave of horrified recognition crashing over her. No. It can't be. Just then, the bridge creaked ominously, and the water's surface churned violently. The creature's roar reverberated through the air, and as Susan's eyes darted back, she sensed it rising, determined to follow them. Fate was bearing down, and choices had to be made swiftly. It was no longer a question of survival but of trust. Who to believe? The watery abyss or the haunting echoes of a lost soul who should never have returned? Susan pulled Lily close, her heart racing as the ground beneath them trembled with uncertainty. "We have to jump again." With a swift, final glance at the monstrous darkness swirling behind them, she made her choice. But as they leapt, the true horror of their reality struck home: who would rise and who would be left behind? And in the air, as freedom mingled with fear, a voice whispered from the depths, "You can't escape me." What awaited them on the other side? The world blurred as they plunged into the unknown, the cold water enveloping them once again. Susan felt every ounce of her strength fueled by the need to protect Lily. As they sank into the depths, she held tightly to her little girl, whispering words of encouragement that came out more like fervent prayers. "We're going to be okay. We're going to get through this." With sheer determination, she kicked hard, fighting the pull of the water as they broke the surface, gasping for air. But they weren't safe yet. The shadows danced ominously just beneath them, a reminder of what they had escaped but hadn't truly outrun. The haunting laughter from the bridge echoed in her mind, getting louder, a malevolent mantra signaling their pursuers' approach. The shore was just within reach, but Susan's limbs felt heavy, fatigue creeping in like a thief in the night. "Come on, Lily. Just a bit more," she urged, desperation lacing her voice. Lily flailed beside her, fear gripping her tiny frame. "I can't," she cried, her voice shrill, panic rising. "Yes, you can. Look at the shore." Susan pointed, her heart racing, fear surging through her with every desperate push of her arms. Finally, Lily found her footing against a protruding log, the rough texture grounding her as they edged toward safety. With a burst of energy, Susan crawled up onto the bank, pulling Lily alongside her. They collapsed onto the grass, gasping and panting, the weight of the night crashing around them. But a piercing howl behind them sent them spiraling into panic once more. The creature was following, hungry and relentless. "Get up, Lily!" Susan shouted, her voice thick with urgency. They scrambled onto their feet, adrenaline surging anew as fear became their only fuel. The water was not a mere barrier, it felt like an ancient threshold they had crossed, awakening something beyond their understanding. They sprinted toward the direction of the light, a flicker of hope pulsating in the distance. The trees were thick and wild, branches snapping like bones as they pushed through. "Where are we going?" Lily gasped, tears streaking down her face. "To safety," Susan shouted back, resolve hardening her voice. But the shadows behind them twisted and turned, coiling around their legs, trying to pull them into the abyss. Suddenly, the air thickened, and Susan felt it, the presence of the creature inching ever closer, feeding off their fear. "We can't let it in," she shouted, remembering the woman's words from earlier. They had to confront this terror, not just run away. With a deep breath, she spun around, forcing herself to face the darkness, Lily trembling by her side. "We are not afraid of you," she cried out, her voice ringing with defiance. The shadows recoiled momentarily, a ripple of uncertainty vibrating through them. "This ends tonight," Susan shouted, shaking as the weight of her proclamation settled upon her. The creature surged forward, its silhouette blacker than the night around them, teeth glistening like ice. As it lunged, Susan instinctively grabbed a fallen branch, a desperate weapon formed from nature's fury. "Lily, behind me!" With a surge of determination, she swung the stick, but it passed right through, as if the creature were made of smoke and nightmares. It laughed, cruel and mocking, but Susan could see the flicker of hesitation in its eyes. "You think you can challenge the darkness?" it taunted, its voice seeping into her bones. Susan steadied herself, there was no room for doubt. "You don't own us. You don't get to decide what happens here." "I will take what I please," it whispered, the world around them flickering, shadows closing in on all sides, dark tendrils wrapping around the last shred of hope. In that instant, something in Susan cracked, and raw power flooded her veins. "No!" she screamed, the sound primal, filled with all the pain and fear she had faced that night. She raised the branch, and in it, she channeled a force of fearlessness born not just of survival but of a mother's love, pure and fierce. The air shifted. Light rippled through the trees, illuminating their surroundings with otherworldly brilliance. Susan thrust the stick forward again, and for the first time, it connected. The darkness recoiled, howling in anger, the echo breaking the spell it had over them. As it writhed in the light, shadows scattered, its figure flickering. You could see the anguished rage in its hollow eyes. The laughter turned to a raw, piercing screech. "You cannot escape your fate," it bellowed, but Susan stood her ground. In that powerful moment, she summoned every ounce of her strength, every ounce of love for Lily enveloping her. "Watch me!" she yelled. Then with a fierce yell, she swung the branch hard, the force of it vibrating through her arms. As it struck, the darkness erupted into a shower of light, blinding and glorious. For a moment, Susan felt weightless, as if freeing herself from every chain that had bound her through the past, the fears, and the insidious grasp of the creature. Then, silence fell. Susan gasped, opening her eyes. The creature was gone, the darkness receding until only glimmers of light remained, illuminating the park with a warm glow. "Mommy, is it gone?" Lily asked, her voice small but filled with wonder. "Yes, sweetie. We did it." Tears of relief streamed down her face as she hugged Lily tight. They were free. The nightmare had ended, replaced by a fragile hope washing over them like dawn breaking through the night. Returning home would be a new journey, but they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger together. Holding on to that irreplaceable truth, Susan took a deep breath and allowed a flicker of hope to grow in her heart. This night had changed them, but it wouldn't define them. Their story was theirs to write now, with light leading the way. Now, if you believe in celebrating courage and the bonds of family just like Susan and Lily S., let us keep this journey going. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next adventure into the unknown. Smash that like button now. Every click feeds the algorithm and shows your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your voice matters, and we want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heart-pounding conclusion. Together, we'll keep exploring stories that matter. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey.